Greetings, everybody. The year 2021 saw diversity, equity, and inclusion make it to the top of the agenda for most organizations around the world. However, we believe we still have a very long way to go before we truly achieve the balance that reflects our society's reality, actually. With the launch of a Women in Business study conducted by our firm, Kingsley Gate Partners, in Ibero-America last year, we discovered the journey behind some of the most successful senior women executives across various industries in that region. This year, we plan to take the study globally, starting with our new series called Her Corner Office. Here we bring to light these stories of opportunities, challenges, and achievements that catapulted leading women executives to success. Each of our guests will also share their advice for aspiring women leaders of tomorrow as well. That said, and without further ado, I would like to introduce our guest, Shalini Sarin, to our esteemed audience. I have known Shalini for more than a decade now, since her days as India HR leader for Schneider, who has then gone on to don global HR and business roles in Schneider and in Philips, and today is a well-known thought leader in academia and ESG, that is corporate sustainability, and is also on the board of a few companies of repute in India. Welcome, Shalini. It is a pleasure to have you on your platform discussing your corner office.
Thank you very much, Sanjay, and it's been lovely knowing you and working with you on some of the assignments. So, yeah, happy to be here.
Great. So let me set the ball rolling, Shalini, by asking you, from a bird's eye view perspective for our listeners, would you want to kind of take us through your professional journey from what I hear, and you've said to me before, that starting off as a consultant to a global HR and business leader, and now being an entrepreneur and a thought leader, especially on sustainability?
Yeah, Sanjay, it's a very, I think each one's journey is very unique, and sometimes it's by design and sometimes by default. I think I kind of meandered into some spaces, and some, of course, were by design. So I started my career, incidentally, by teaching. I taught OB, organization behavior, at MDI, and the transition into consulting was very, very smooth. However, from consulting to the corporate world was a very significant change and a real moment, because that's where you have the constraints of the budget, you have to get things done, you have different business pressures. I think the two organizations that I associate and relate myself with is Schneider Electric in India and in Philips. So I worked with several corporates, but these are the two which really define me. And then with Philips, since I had a global role, I moved to Amsterdam, and I was living there for a couple of years. And after 4 years, I realized that I was very lonely and I wanted to come back. And I came back to India. During my stint at Schneider and at Philips, which I kind of coupled together, is I worked not only as the head of HR, but I also headed CSR, business, which was an incubator called BibBop in the base of the pyramid, and sustainability and ESG became my passion as well. When I came back to India, I joined my husband's startup, which is in electric mobility, co-founded it, and I'm on the board of several companies. So therefore, governance, HR, advisor for corporate and social sector became my space.
It's very interesting, Shalini. I'm sure that as we continue the conversation, our listeners would probably gain more and more insights of your exciting journey, so as to speak. So, in terms of your experience, it's a little bit of a philosophical question, and somewhat a little bit on the naughtier side also, if you will. In your experience, what makes a great leader, and are women different from men as leaders, and if so, how?
For me, leadership is about authenticity, courage, and empathy. Authenticity helps build trust, brings about transparency, there's no double guessing, and generally makes it easy to work with. Courage helps in making the right decisions at the right time, challenging status quo. And empathy helps in how we treat people, how we make them feel and get the best out of them. I think women are easier at authenticity, empathy, and collaboration, while courage, drive, and competitiveness may come more easily to men. Having said that, I have met so many men who are highly empathetic and women who are very competitive.
Got it. And going back to my question, compared to men leaders, I mean,
Yeah.
you talked about authenticity, courage, and empathy.
Yeah.
At least in my book, I see that whenever I've seen a woman leader, or any woman for that matter, I see that they're definitely scored, in my book at least, that much higher than men as far as courage and empathy is concerned, along with what you said as authenticity. So do you think that these continue to be a potential differentiators, if both, everything being equal between a leader who's done well for himself and a woman who's
Yeah. So Sanjay, there are a few things that come naturally to one gender, and there are a few things that come naturally to the other gender. For example, you could be a natural right-hander or a natural left-hander. Does not mean that if my right hand is amputated, I will never be able to write with my left. Or if my left hand is amputated, I will never be. It's about developing, harnessing, and cultivating those skills. You have a feminine side and we have a masculine side. So what comes naturally to women is collaboration. What comes naturally to women is multitasking. What comes naturally to women is empathy. However, we've had some outstanding role model men who are extremely high on empathy, and I've had some team members as women who are highly competitive. So you have both sides of it, but I think the feminine behaviors and the masculine behaviors both need to be harnessed in so as to complement each other.
I think it's very rightly put. I couldn't agree with you more, Shalini, there. Absolutely, some great points. But what has been your recipe for success? And could you name some of the drivers of what has brought you here and taking you on such a successful journey in the corporate world and where you are today?
I'm not sure if there's a simple mantra, but people see me as high energy, resilient, who doesn't give up easily and follows through to completion. I think I'm blessed with seeing possibilities more than I see challenges.
While we talk about successes, what has been your key drivers, motivators? What has been the biggest lesson you've learned? And of course, on the other side, lesson can also lead to success, but a failure can also lead to a lesson. So on the other side, what has been your greatest success and what has been the biggest lesson you've learned so far?
So I would say that, like I mentioned a little while ago, prioritization and focus is one of the very important lessons that I learned very early in life. And the other lesson that I learned, Sanjay, which is more a balcony view or a hindsight, which is always 6x6, is to maintain a balance. Very often in life, especially I've found that more in India, we do one thing at the cost of the other. For example, career at the cost of family, marriage at the cost of relationship. And I think, or even health, which is completely deprioritized, and sports and fitness, which are becoming popular today, in our times were not even talked about.
Yeah.
And this is what I learned when during my stint in the Netherlands, that it is extremely important to have that balance between work, family, social life, personal hobbies, and all that you want to do within that time frame, because one enhances the other. It does not become an obstacle for the other. So the moment you are a part of clubs or a part of hobby groups or sports or fitness, you're enhancing your work life with that balance. And that's my biggest lesson that I learned as well.
Got it. And I've seen this at home as well. So for women especially, because when they're, I don't know if I can use the word juggling, but when you have a full-time career, you are a full-time mother, you're a full-time homemaker as well. I mean, I don't know how women do it. And to your point on multitasking earlier. So coming to this very point again, you talked about balance. So is there such thing as a balance at all? I mean, just to kind of play the devil's advocate here, or is it something, because somewhere I was reading that this balance of career, personal life, and passions is probably cliched, probably doesn't exist. One comes at the cost of the other. So from what I hear, you definitely not think so, and you still feel that there can be equal attention given to the various aspects of one's life and priorities.
Absolutely. I am a great believer of and. I got married at the age of 20. I did my MBA and my master's and my PhD while my children were being born. I used to put a face pack to keep my eyes awake because even coffee wouldn't be able to help. And then I worked all along when the children were growing up, whether in India or overseas. So I wanted a life of and. However, I know that I wanted to study. I would have to get up at 4 o'clock. I would have to forsake my sleep. If I wanted to have kids and to work, I had to have a very good support system at home so that the children are taken care, and I would over pamper and spoil them because that is what I wanted. If I wanted to travel, I knew I had to negotiate with my husband that last time when they were ill, I stayed back. This time, if they are ill, you stay back, so that our travels were coordinated on the same calendar and we were aware of each other's travel plans. I wanted to have a crazy work life Monday to Friday and a crazy party life over the weekends. And I did that. And I ran 18 kilometers and I cycled at the age of 50. So I wanted a life of and. However, you cannot get there are no free lunches. So the trade-offs need to be thought through. And that is something that I tell people, that, you can have a kid and a career. You can have a house, but you need to make that support system. You need to negotiate with your partner. You need to be able to negotiate with your manager, with your team. You need to set the expectations right, but you need to communicate.
Communication. I mean, they say, the world's problems can be rooted out through just plain, transparent, simple communication, right? As simplistic I'm putting it, but you just said it. It's all about communication at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Super. Shalini, do you have a role model or mentor that has helped you either in your career, or just would you want to talk about somebody who's been a leading light and a guide for you throughout your career so far?
So there hasn't been one person who's been my role model or my mentor. I would say that many people have influenced me, some formally, some informally, some just by observation, some by mentoring. I imbibed a lot from my father, and his courage and fairness is something which is my mantra, and I think that defines me. My father-in-law, who was a world-renowned Sanskritist, he inspired me by his hard work, where he would get up at 4 a.m. in the morning and keep writing till the end of the day, till the age of 90.
Wow.
I've had a wonderful mentor, R.R. Nair, who's helped me sometimes untangle my muddled thoughts, and being a great sounding board to help give me clarity. But in general, Sanjay, earlier I would learn from my seniors, people who had more experience. In the latter life, I learned more from my peers, how they behave, how they treat their team, how they come across, make decisions. Today, I learn from the millennials, and I learn a shitload from them because they are challenging my mental models. And every day I'm learning and I'm challenging myself and asking why not. So I think that keeps me very excited when I learn from this generation.
I think this learning from millennials, I think, holds good for all what I call brick and mortar folks like us, right? You're experiencing that. Currently you're teaching at one of the premier institutes in the Delhi NCR region, if I'm not mistaken. At least
I'm on the board. Yeah, I'm an advisor on the board. Yeah.
Awesome. Is it important actually, as a corollary to my earlier question, is it important to have a mentor to grow as a leader? And what kind of steps can our listeners here on this cast take to build that kind of relationship? What do they have to do? Love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah. You see what happens, you judge yourself basis your intentions, whereas others judge you basis your behavior. Your behavior is not accessible to you, and your intentions are not accessible to others. So there's always a gap. And in order to bridge that gap, you need either buddies or sounding boards or mentors who've had more experience and have navigated through that maze. So I've been very fortunate to have those. And I think it doesn't come on its own. You need to reach out. You need to communicate. You need to open up. And therefore, harness these relationships. Because I've had mentees who made the most of this mentoring relationship. And I've had formal mentoring programs and mentees who have not taken enough advantage of it. So therefore, I would say it is in your benefit, to my listeners, to be able to reach out to experiences that you feel would add value to your career or even your ambiguities and decision making.
So we talked about your learnings and you shared that with our listeners. Now, the next question is, I wouldn't call it a bit controversial, but still, let me still ask you because we are talking about her corner office and your corner office. Is there something so much as a dangerous or a behavior or trait that can essentially derail, especially a female potential leader's career, a female potential leader, or any female's career as they look to move on and grow in their professional life?
Sanjay, I feel very, very strongly about this. And I think there are some behaviors that could come in the way of realizing your ambition and your dreams. And the first one is lack of ambition or desire. I've seen the most qualified women not have a desire or ambition to be able to do something, to bring value to somebody else or to a corporate or social sector, wherever you may choose. But there has to be a desire. And the second thing is trying to find an easy way out. There is no easy way to anything. The only way is to work hard and be committed. So there are no shortcuts.
No free lunches, as you said.
Absolutely. And, rationalizing or finding excuses. I left my career because of my husband. I did not study because of my parents. I did not do because I had children very early. All of that are excuses, because if you really, really want to do it, you will find a way to do it. So that self-pity or rationalization or displacement is something that will not get you far. And inability to make a choice and inability to negotiate is another big block that I see that people have. You need to be able to express yourself and share with your partner, with your family, with your manager, that this is what I'm doing, but this is what I expect. So that if there is a movement in your doing and your expectation, you can collaborate and come to a consensus and not keep others guessing.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree with you more, because this also boils down to your earlier comment. When I asked you this question, you talked about lack of ambition. Probably it also stems in from the fact that, unfortunately, women, however highly they're qualified, however highly they're capable of humongous potential, they somehow are kind of held back or straitjacketed by the fact that the man of the house should take lead in running the whole family, not the woman. So to your point on communication, so the women who are potential, not or even who are capable, should have clear and concise communication with their family and say, these are the priorities which I'm going to lay down in my life, and you and me as partners are going to go about and achieving those objectives. And there are certain sacrifices you need to make, I need to make, but the fact of the matter is constant and clear communication again.
Absolutely.
Got it.
A lot goes unsaid, and that's the biggest damage.
With now stepping back and talking more on diversity, with so much of growing push for organizations globally, and also I see here in India to become as diversity ready as possible. How do you, and this is one of my favorite subjects and topic of discussion whenever I come across a promoter or a HR leader or a managing director of a company who says he or she wants diversity candidates. So the question to you I have is, how do you balance the concept of diversity with a drive for performance and also culture fit?
Yeah. And I'm glad you asked me this question, because this tick in the box also disturbs me. While I'm really glad that organizations are putting their best foot forward to encourage gender diversity and all other kinds of diversity, I think the real issue is inclusion and not exclusivity. And inclusion is not still very well understood by people. If we are inclusive, we will be able to get that 50% balanced talent, which we are not able to tap on during this war of talent. It's more a human rights issue than a gender issue. It requires a mindset change of what people bring to the table, what is required, who is my customer today. If my customer is the other gender, then I don't have people who are designing stuff for them. How will they get it right? So it requires we need to move the needle from letter to spirit, and therefore it requires a complete systems thinking, from family to society to schools to city and to organizations, and therefore it's a more a cultural issue. I don't think gender and culture are mutually exclusive. They are very dependent on each other, and therefore, if we in organizations bring gender, culture, all of that in the lens of capability and skills that we require, rather than male female thing, we will be able to do much more to our business than we are able to do within the boundaries that we have created.
So going on to the next question, what has been your leadership style, Shalini? What's your method for building this bridge of culture and employee engagement?
Yeah.
Is this style unique?
I'm not sure it's unique, but what has helped me and that defines me is to be an inclusive leader who likes to grow people, empower people, and mine the gold in the talents. I see myself very high on the relationship axis, and therefore for me, getting people who are very passionate, committed together is extremely important. And I think I'm kind of repeating myself that my yardstick has been fairness, courage, and honesty, which is what I call my core values, or my lighthouse that has been guiding me.
Fantastic. This last couple of questions I have in my mind. Being a leader, obviously, leading a professional corporate life in itself is stressful, but as the cliche goes, the higher you go, the lonelier you get. So a leadership role can really be stressful, and I have experienced this myself in my career so far. But how do you, Shalini, like to unwind? That's what we would like to learn from you.
One thing is get a balance. Run if that helps you, or go to the gym, or have some fitness, or play a sport. And the other is, of course, for me, socializing is extremely important. And something that I do over weekends, which helps me tremendously, is gardening. I have a farm, and I spend time with my garden, with my flowers, with my farm. I teach English to the children of my staff. So I have some kids coming over whom I teach English, and I enjoy myself because I prepare them for English skits to be able to build confidence, and generally have fun.
Have fun. That's the kind of takeaway, right? Have fun in whatever you do. There's one question we would like to ask our guests on this show is the prediction for their industry. Maybe this is particularly important considering the time we're living in and this uncertainty usual VUCA the businesses face. Could you share what would your thoughts be for 2022 and beyond, whether it's anything with regard to the economic situation, the perspective from your HR and entrepreneurship background, or even geopolitics if you want to?
Sanjay, I wish I had that crystal ball, and I wish anybody had that crystal ball, because who knew COVID would strike so hard? Who knew in today's time we'll have something which we thought was only in the Middle Ages between Ukraine and Russia? So I think going forward, we'll have to live with far greater contradictions. With all the climate change and political changes and biological warfares and whatever else, I think the contradictions that I see coming are, for example, you see people are working from home and going to office twice a week actually to socialize. So, and I've interviewed a lot of people in India and in UK, and they say, if we go to work, how will we get things done? Which is a very different paradigm. So they want to focus and get things done in their home office and go to the office, when they need to just meet up with somebody and brainstorm or something like that, or go for a coffee. The other paradigm I see, while people are buying more cycles, the number of big cars are also going up. It's a complete contradiction. While people are getting very digitally savvy, they are losing touch with teams and people around them or family.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of contradiction that is going to come. For example, who would think that Germany would have escalation on the power tariff, where a few years ago they had surplus because of solar on every rooftop. So there is going to be a lot of contradiction that we will have to deal with, and a good leader will have to be able to manage these contradiction and ambiguity and be comfortable with them.
Got it. Fantastic. So I have one question which hopefully I think can summarize much of the learnings what our listeners can take away after listening to you in this piece of conversation we had, Shalini. That is, so there is a younger version of yourself and you. So what are you going to tell Shalini Sarin of the younger version? The do's and don'ts as far as life in general, corporate, professional, personal, if you would like to share.
So some of the do's I would say is continue to invest in learning of self and others. Once you graduate from college, that's not the end of learning. That is only the beginning of learning. So invest in yourself. And I did that for a very, very long time. Every year I would learn a new skill or certify in an area to, get deeper and deeper, and invest in others, growing others. The second is take personal ownership for your brand. You are responsible for brand Shalini, nobody else.
Absolutely.
So what do you want brand Shalini to be? And your manager and others are not watching you all the time, but your reputation goes a long way. Communicate effectively, extremely important. I cannot overemphasize the importance of communication, and share knowledge as it grows, have that abundance mentality. Invest in creating networks. And this is something that I learned very late in my life, and I did not probably do enough. But if I was to tell the young Shalini again, to invest in networks and, of course, in relationships. Be inclusive. That was a mantra that was very close to me. And give before you take. There is a huge power in reciprocity. And there's this very famous book too that emphasizes how important it is to give, invest before you start expecting. Time is of an essence, so speed is extremely important. If you don't have the right thoughts or clarity, consult, prioritize, but act fast. The environment is changing very, very rapidly. And today, be on top of technology, because technology is moving so fast that learn, and get over your obstacles with technology. Build ecosystems, because you will not be able to do it all, and finally, I would say, be rooted in your why. Keep energizing yourself and be rooted in, why am I doing what I'm doing?
Well, it's been fascinating talking to you, Shalini. Thank you so much for your time and insights on your journey thus far. It's been a pleasure hosting you and learning from you. I'm sure your thoughts and experience will propel more women to come out of the shadows and take their place in the sun. I'm sure it's already happening, but we really wish that more and more women come out and take their place under the sun, as I said, and deservingly so. Thank you so much. It's been a wonderful time talking to you, and really look forward to staying in touch, and wish you all the best in whatever you do.
Thank you very much, Sanjay. And I wish all my listeners the very best, because women have something inherent in them, which is very powerful. So I hope more and more surfaces, and all the best.
Thank you so much.